In America today, nearly 6 in 10 adults live paycheck to paycheck, even among those earning over 6 figures. So why does personal finance advice so often sound like it's written for people who've never skipped a meal or worried about overdraft fees? This striking disconnect forms the backbone of Dana Miranda's bold challenge to the mainstream money mindset. Her journey, from scraping by on $12,000 a year to working in the heart of a personal finance newsroom, uncovered a deep, systemic bias. Much of financial advice simply ignores the realities of financial insecurity. Budgeting isn't broken, but it's being taught by people who've never had to choose between rent and groceries, Miranda reflects. In a meeting where colleagues gasped to learn that millions of Americans lack access to credit, Miranda saw the full picture. Traditional finance culture is steeped in middle-class privilege, unintentionally marginalizing those it claims to help. Renowned investor Morgan Housel reminds us, how you behave is more important than what you know, which underscores a vital truth: emotional safety and lived experience matter just as much as spreadsheets and savings rates. Think of it like a GPS that only works in wealthy neighborhoods. If you're navigating financial survival, strict budgets and rigid tracking apps often don't guide you, they guilt you. Miranda urges readers to consider budgeting not as a moral failing but as a deeply personal practice that should flex with life's chaos. Would you give the same financial plan to a single mom, a laid-off worker, and a tech executive? Then why pretend there's one-size-fits-all financial advice? Financial well-being isn't about control, it's about clarity and choice. What if the anxiety you feel around money isn't a flaw, but a signal? Could it be that obsessing over tracking every dollar is draining your energy rather than empowering you? Ask yourself, are you making money decisions based on your values, or just inherited rules you never agreed to? Miranda gives us permission to redefine financial success. Sometimes, success means rest, freedom, or simply surviving with dignity. If your relationship with money feels like a source of shame or stress, it's time to shift the narrative. You deserve a financial life that respects your reality, not just your receipts. Rethink budgeting, challenge your financial conditioning, and start building a relationship with money that supports your mental well-being and autonomy. Remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. Refill yours by following content that puts humanity over hustle. Rethink budgeting, financial well-being, personal finance advice. About the author. Dana Miranda is a certified educator in personal finance and a seasoned financial journalist. She founded Healthy Rich with a mission to transform the conversation around financial education. Her work has been featured in leading outlets such as the New York Times, Forbes, Business Insider, and Money, reflecting her deep expertise and commitment to making personal finance more inclusive and accessible. Key Takeaway 1. The flawed truth behind budget culture: why ditching budgets might actually set you free. What if skipping your morning latte wasn't ruining your financial future, but obsessing over it might be? For decades, we've been told that wealth building is as simple as counting pennies, cutting luxuries, and climbing the ladder of frugality. From Dave Ramsey's rigid 7-step plan to the famed latte factor that blames cappuccinos for your empty savings account, budget advice has long focused on personal discipline. But here's the twist: those strategies often miss the mark. Financial educator Dana Miranda challenges this conventional wisdom by revealing an uncomfortable truth: budget culture is broken. As the founder of Healthy Rich and a seasoned financial journalist featured in the New York Times, Forbes, and Business Insider, Miranda brings more than opinion, she brings authority. Quoting Audre Lorde, she reminds us, "You do not live in a single-issue world." And when it comes to money, Miranda argues, we can't afford to ignore the complex interplay of systems and identity. Despite the rise of financial literacy education, racial and economic gaps stubbornly persist. Why? Because, as studies confirm, a person's financial future is more closely tied to their parents' income than to how well they budget. The real obstacle isn't your coffee habit, it's a system rigged against equity. To paint the picture clearly, Miranda compares traditional budgeting to trying to navigate a stormy sea with a teaspoon. You're told to scoop fast, stay dry, and keep paddling. But no one talks about the storm, or the leaky boat. This analogy hits home for millions who follow every rule yet still feel financially stuck. What good is discipline if the game is stacked against you? Budgeting culture thrives on guilt, often treating systemic barriers as excuses rather than realities. The result? People feel ashamed for struggling, even when they're doing everything right. So, what if we stopped chasing the perfect budget? What if, instead, we learn how money moves, who controls it, how systems distribute it, and what changes could level the playing field? Miranda's budget-free approach encourages individuals to think bigger than spreadsheets. Rather than obsess over dollars and cents, she urges us to ask, how can I engage with money in a way that honors my life, my values, and my community? If financial wellness is our goal, shouldn't we question the very rules that keep most people from achieving it? This isn't just a critique, it's an invitation. An invitation to ditch the guilt, rethink the grind, and explore a more holistic path to financial wellness. As you step into the next chapter of this conversation, ask yourself, are you budgeting for control, or for liberation? Hit like, share your thoughts, and subscribe if you're ready to challenge the norms and embrace a more inclusive approach to personal finance. As Miranda reminds us, you are not the problem, your budget is. Let's rewrite the rules, together. Key takeaway 2. Why obsessive budgeting is hurting you, and what to focus on instead. What if the very habits meant to help you build wealth are quietly sabotaging your peace of mind? For many, budgeting begins with good intentions: track every penny, monitor your spending, stay in control. But somewhere along the way, it morphs into an all-consuming chore. Like a never-ending news ticker in your mind, money begins to dictate every decision: what you eat, where you live, even how you parent. Instead of freedom, it breeds financial anxiety. And according to personal finance expert Dana Miranda, it's time to change the narrative. As the founder of Healthy Rich and a certified educator in personal finance, Miranda has been featured in major outlets like the New York Times, Forbes, and Business Insider. She draws on the wisdom of Stephen Covey, who reminds us to put the big rocks in first. In other words, focus on what truly matters. Traditional budgeting, Miranda argues, has us laser-focused on the tiniest decisions, our sand, while we ignore the life-shaping choices that carry the most weight. Budgeting should support your life, not run it, she says. Imagine this: a professor places large rocks in a jar until full, then adds pebbles, then sand, then water. The point? If you don't prioritize the big rocks first, there's no room left for them. Miranda applies this metaphor to our finances. Your big rocks are things like where you live, what kind of work you do, and how you structure your family life. Take Marian's story, for example. She didn't obsess over every latte, she made conscious, empowering choices. Fewer children, a flexible career, and affordable housing gave her financial stability without ever needing a spreadsheet. So, ask yourself, are you losing sleep over coffee habits while ignoring whether your career aligns with your values? That's the trap of traditional budgeting. It gets you hyper-focused on the minutiae while neglecting the foundational decisions that shape your future. This budget-free financial wellness model reframes money management around life choices, not receipts. Instead of limiting yourself with endless tracking, you gain freedom by making intentional, values-driven decisions. It's time to reclaim your mental space and rewrite your relationship with money. Budgeting shouldn't feel like surveillance, it should feel like support. So before you open another finance app or scrutinize another grocery run, pause and reflect. What are your big rocks? As Miranda would say, money should fit into your life, not the other way around. Key takeaway 3. Ditch the budget, the yes fund strategy that makes money management effortless. What if managing your money didn't require spreadsheets, stress, or second-guessing every purchase? For most people, budgeting conjures images of tedious tracking, restrictive categories, and the constant worry of overspending. But there's a simpler, more freeing approach that puts the essentials on autopilot and hands you back control, without the guilt. Financial educator Dana Miranda introduces the Yes Fund method, a budget-free money system that prioritizes ease, clarity, and emotional well-being. With her background as a certified educator in personal finance and recognition in the New York Times, Forbes, and Business Insider, Miranda challenges the old-school notion that financial control comes from constant vigilance. She explains that true financial wellness begins with automation. Pay yourself first, the classic personal finance wisdom goes, but Miranda modernizes this by encouraging automated payments for essentials like rent, insurance, and savings goals. Once those commitments are covered, your money becomes a tool for joy, not a source of anxiety. Here's the beauty of the Yes Fund: after taking care of fixed expenses and goals, you're free to say yes without second-guessing. Want to grab sushi with a friend or book a spontaneous weekend trip? Just check your Yes Fund. No more slicing your spending into rigid categories like entertainment or miscellaneous. This approach shifts the question from "can I afford this?" to "what's the opportunity cost?" A much more empowering way to engage with your finances. Traditional budgeting often ignores an essential truth: not spending has costs, too. Declining a night out might save $40, but it could cost you connection, joy, and mental health. The Yes Fund approach acknowledges the full picture, allowing you to make decisions based on value, not just cost. As Miranda puts it, money should enhance your life, not control it. It's not about saying no to spending, it's about saying yes with intention. Think of this system like a calendar. You block out time for work, rest, and essentials. What's left is yours to enjoy, without the pressure of checking the clock. The Yes Fund gives your finances that same kind of freedom. So if you're tired of the mental load of traditional budgeting, consider this your invitation to a simpler path. Because managing money shouldn't be a burden, it should be a tool for living well. Key takeaway 4. Escaping hustle culture, reclaiming worth beyond productivity. Why do we measure our worth by how exhausted we are? In today's world, overwork isn't just normalized, it's glorified. We wear busyness like a badge of honor, celebrate the grind, and silently believe that hustle equals value. This mindset isn't accidental. It's rooted in a centuries-old belief system known as the Protestant work ethic, a cultural operating system that, while stripped of its religious roots, still runs quietly beneath every boardroom, startup, and side hustle. The result? Our identities have become entangled with our output. Financial educator Dana Miranda, founder of Healthy Rich and contributor to the New York Times and Forbes, invites us to confront this invisible programming. We devalue care, dismiss rest, and over-prioritize what brings in a paycheck, she notes. From stay-at-home parents to community organizers, meaningful contributions outside the formal economy are often dismissed as unproductive. This cultural bias toward paid labor feeds burnout, deepens inequality, and distorts our sense of success. As Miranda explains, especially in passion-driven work, many feel compelled to accept low wages and long hours because they're doing what they love. But at what cost? Imagine being told that your caregiving doesn't count, or that helping your community isn't real work. That's the reality of hustle culture. We're stuck in a system where rest feels guilty, joy feels indulgent, and taking a breath can seem like failure. But what if there's a better way? What if financial freedom and personal fulfillment came not from doing more, but from choosing differently? Miranda points to emerging models that challenge the status quo. Freelancing offers autonomy. Cooperatives, like the Guerrilla Media Collective, create shared ownership. And though often overlooked, labor unions still hold the power to balance inequities through collective bargaining. The Guerrilla Media Collective's radical approach, equally valuing client work, pro bono efforts, and organizational care, defies the old narrative that only revenue-generating tasks matter. It's a glimpse of what equitable work culture could look like. So here's the call: you don't need to hustle to be worthy. What if success wasn't about doing more but doing what matters? What would happen if we redefined productivity to include rest, care, and community? As Miranda reminds us, you are more than what you produce. Let's create a future where work supports life, not the other way around. Key takeaway 5. Rethinking financial freedom, why breaking the rules might be the smartest move. What if the smartest financial decision you ever made was breaking a lease and hitting the road? That's exactly what Jenny and Meredith did when they traded their high-cost LA apartment for a 112-square-foot Airstream trailer. At first glance, their move might seem reckless, ditching a steady income, taking on vehicle debt, walking away from a lease. But look closer, and you'll see something powerful: a conscious choice to reclaim freedom by redefining what financial responsibility really means. Dana Miranda, a respected voice in values-based financial life, argues that the illusion of fixed expenses keeps many people trapped. Bills like rent, car payments, and utilities show up with such regularity that they feel inevitable, unchangeable. But as Miranda reminds us, every financial obligation is a choice, not a sentence. Jenny and Meredith didn't flee from their bills, they reevaluated which ones still aligned with their lives and which ones didn't. When Meredith felt ready to leave her career in education, they didn't wait to be financially ready, they restructured their lives to make the leap possible. We're taught that breaking financial commitments is a moral failing. That's the insidious nature of budget culture. It ties your worth to how reliably you pay your bills, regardless of whether those bills serve your values. But bills aren't sacred. They're contracts. A late fee isn't a moral punishment, Miranda explains. It's a business consequence. Once you see your financial obligations as negotiable agreements rather than permanent shackles, you open the door to a new kind of financial freedom. Think about it: paying a $2,000 lease break fee feels drastic, until you realize it might save $24,000 in rent over the next year. Similarly, negotiating a debt settlement could dent your credit score, but save you tens of thousands in interest. This shift in thinking turns fear into strategy. You're no longer reacting to bills, you're evaluating them, asking, does this still serve me? What's the real cost of staying versus leaving? That's how to manage money without budgeting, through intentional, informed decisions, not guilt-driven routines. The real power lies in remembering that you have options. You can walk away. You can renegotiate. You can pivot. This isn't about avoiding responsibility, it's about owning your choices. So the next time a bill lands in your inbox, don't just pay it out of habit. Pause. Reflect. Ask, is this still aligned with the life I want? Because as Miranda teaches, freedom isn't just found in the numbers, it's found in your choices. Key takeaway 6. Building wealth without Wall Street, how one woman created a 7-figure retirement. What if you could retire comfortably without ever touching the stock market? That's exactly what Marian did. As she neared retirement with only modest savings, she didn't panic or gamble her future on volatile markets. Instead, she and her daughter, Anna, tapped into their shared love of RV travel, and turned it into a thriving business. By creating a platform that connects RV travelers with hosts, like an Airbnb for the road, they built a community, scaled a business, and eventually sold it for 7 figures. No stocks, no hedge funds, just creativity and courage. Dana Miranda, a personal finance educator and the founder of Healthy Rich, uses stories like Marian's to challenge the dogma of conventional financial advice. The financial industry has sold us a dream: stock market investing is the one true path to wealth. It's a narrative polished to perfection: invest early, let compound interest do the rest, and retire a millionaire. But this storyline hides 2 truths. First, not everyone has equal access to the market, and second, alternatives exist that can be just as effective, and often more empowering. As Miranda puts it, there's no one-size-fits-all path to financial security. Beyond the numbers, investing brings ethical complexity. How do you reconcile profit with conscience when so many corporations thrive on environmental harm and labor exploitation? Even socially responsible funds rarely escape the imperative to maximize returns. That's why values-based financial life planning matters. Whether it's peer-to-peer lending platforms like solo funds or investing directly in local businesses, people now have the tools to grow wealth while strengthening their communities. These aren't just financial strategies, they're acts of alignment between values and money. And contrary to popular belief, professional financial advice isn't just for the wealthy. Free support is often available through employer-sponsored retirement plans, HR departments, and even local nonprofit networks. For those who seek more personalized help, fiduciary, fee-only financial advisors, who work for you, not commissions, are a better alternative to the sales-driven models pushed by traditional firms. Understanding your options is the first step to taking control of your financial future. So, what's your version of Marian's RV empire? Maybe it's a side hustle that brings purpose and profit, a community investment that feels good and grows, or a smarter way to use the tools you already have. You don't need Wall Street's approval to succeed, you need clarity, creativity, and courage. Because as Miranda reminds us, financial freedom isn't just about having more, it's about choosing better. In You Don't Need a Budget, Dana Miranda dismantles the conventional wisdom that personal finance success comes from obsessively tracking every dollar. Instead of rigid spreadsheets and guilt-driven savings plans, Miranda offers a liberating approach that empowers individuals to reclaim control over their money and their lives by focusing on what truly matters. Her philosophy is rooted not in deprivation, but in intentionally, self-trust, and systemic awareness. The book opens by challenging the flawed mindset of traditional budgeting. From Dave Ramsey's 7 Steps to the infamous latte factor, most financial advice centers on discipline and individual responsibility, often ignoring the systemic barriers that shape financial outcomes. Miranda argues that such advice reinforces shame, encourages hypervigilance, and overlooks the emotional toll of always feeling like you're falling short. Instead of getting trapped in this cycle, Miranda urges readers to focus on their big rocks, the large life decisions that shape financial well-being far more than micromanaging every expense. She illustrates this with stories like Marian's, who didn't panic when approaching retirement with modest savings. Instead, she built a thriving business with her daughter and created the security she needed, outside the stock market and on her own terms. Miranda also explores how cultural narratives around work and productivity, the remnants of the Protestant work ethic, continue to shape our self-worth. We're conditioned to equate value with exhaustion, to glorify hustle, and to ignore the worth of caregiving and community building. The book reveals how these beliefs feed burnout and limit our vision of what financial success can look like. Rather than conforming to this grind, Miranda highlights alternative models, freelancing, cooperatives, and community-based investing, as viable and fulfilling ways to build wealth. She points to organizations like the Guerrilla Media Collective, which value all types of labor equally, as examples of how work and money can be structured around fairness and collective well-being. One of the book's most powerful shifts is in how we view financial obligations. Miranda explains that expenses are not immutable laws, they're agreements we've made and can renegotiate. Through compelling examples, she shows how breaking a lease or negotiating debt can be strategic, not shameful. This perspective gives readers permission to question the rules and prioritize what serves their lives. By spotlighting accessible financial tools and encouraging readers to explore values-aligned choices, like peer-to-peer lending or fiduciary financial planning, Miranda demonstrates that wealth is not a one-size-fits-all formula. It's a journey of conscious decision-making, resourcefulness, and reimagining what's possible when we remove shame and embrace agency. In the end, You Don't Need a Budget is more than a finance book. It's a call to live with greater freedom, confidence, and intention. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to help spread this empowering perspective. And if no one told you lately, remember this: you are loved, you are worthy, and you are spectacularly capable of extraordinary things.